Okay, so now we're going to make the little box for the pencils to go in, and you're going to need the template that you can download. I would recommend printing it either on cardstock or printing it out on paper and then gluing it on cardstock, because I find that templates are a lot easier to use if they are made from cardboard. It's easier to trace around them. And then the little box is going to be made from cardboard. What I have done, I've just used ordinary cardboard, you know, anything that you can just buy you know, in your local shop. Doesn't have to be anything anything special. So in my case, I just printed the pattern I wanted to use onto the cardstock, but I felt that the cardstock was a little bit too thin for my liking, so I decided to just glue this is just ordinary scrapbook paper, on the back to get it a little bit thicker. However, for this one, all I had done is just get some cardstock, and as you can see, this is just really thin tissue paper. I just wanted to see if how well tissue paper would work, and it works quite well. It is thinner and the box is thinner, and I think I would like it to be a little bit thicker, but it does work. Okay, then the tools I'm going to use my cutting mat again. I've got my craft knife, I've got a pair of scissors. A bone folder is really useful. If you haven't got a bone folder, what can work, just grab one of these. If you've got something like a butter knife, I would use the back of the edge. You know, you obviously make sure that you don't injure yourself. Or anything else you could use. I'll try and think of a few more options, and then I'll list them in the list of tools and materials you're going to need. I'll put those below the video. Then obviously a pencil to draw the lines, a ruler, and some kind of glue. I find that double-sided sticky tape works really well. There's really only one part we need to glue, and that is going to be one of the little flaps. But because it's so small and it's not too fiddly, it's okay. I find that double-sided sticky tape works really well, because I don't have to kind of like hold it in place for too long, but just any other glue should work as well. Right, so the first thing you will need to do is obviously trace your template onto the paper or the cardstock you're going to use. I'm just going to quickly cut off the edge, because I'm going to draw the template onto the back, and so I don't accidentally draw onto the edge, because I don't want that to be part of my little box. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to put the template onto the cardstock. You can either line it up with the edge of your cardboard. I'm going to go a little bit down, because as you can see, this is where I ripped out the scrapbook paper, and so it doesn't quite line up 100% here, and I want it all to be covered. Not that I would see it, but I just like it that way. Okay, something else you can do, because you would want to make sure that your template doesn't move around. I quite like to put something heavy on them. I've got these stones. I usually use them when I'm cutting fabrics, and my fabric weights. Because the next thing we're going to do, it's really important that you get a really nice outline of the template, because you want, if your lines are really neat, then you will be able to do all the folds in a really neat way, and that means that your box is going to end up looking really nice and neat. So it's worthwhile, you know, taking it a little bit slowly, putting that extra bit of time in there, and just making sure that it all looks nice. I'm actually going ahead and I'm going to choose a pencil with a really sharp, nice pointy end, and then all I'm doing, I'm going round, and then all I'm doing is I'm just going round my template, and whenever with these lines I'm going to make a little kind of a little mark here and a little mark there, because once I take the template off, obviously I haven't got these lines on my cardstock, and if I'm making these little lines, I know exactly where I need to put my ruler to create those lines, because those are going to be our folding lines. And then, yeah, just trace around the template. Again, do the same thing when you get to the little flaps. Oops, got removed, even though I've got those stones on there. Yeah, I'm going to make a little mark here, even though it's kind of the middle of this length, but it just helps. I can't really make a mark here because it's at the end of the cardstock. There we go. Oh yes, and before you lift up your template, maybe just, you know, lift up one corner and make sure that you've got all the lines there, because, you know, I might have missed this bit, and only lift it up when you're, you know, when you're sure that you've got all your lines on there, all your little marks done. In this case, I just make a little dot in this corner, because when I can line up the two dots and create this line here. There you go. Let's have a look. Ah. Okay, so I've made all my lines, and next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of recreate these lines on my cardboard. One. Okay, and then I'm going to finish this line and take it all the way to the end, because again that's going to help me to, they'll make it easier for me to fold the little box. There we go. And then this little mark I made, I'm going to make a line from this corner up to the dot, and again really make sure that you line them up as best as you can, because that's going to really help you when you're going to fold the box. You know, if you got your line wrong and you're using a pencil, just grab an eraser and just draw the line again. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, but because I haven't got my little dot, I'm just checking, come on, checking the middle. There's actually 2 centimeters. There we go, got my little dot, and then I'm going to just draw my little lines. There you go. Right, so I've got all the lines I need, and now I can cut out my box. I'm going to use my craft knife and the ruler again, but you can just you know, cut along the lines with a pair of scissors. Okay, here we go. I've got my little cardboard box all cut out. Yes, one thing I need to mention, if you're gluing any paper onto your cardboard, first of all, try and really make sure that you've covered the whole area with glue, because otherwise you'll get these little bubbles. And then what I've done with this, I just put some heavy books on top while it was drying, and really make sure that the glue is dry before you start to cut, because it just happened to me that I was too impatient. I wanted to just carry on with whatever I was doing, and then because the glue was still wet, then the paper tore a little bit. So it's, you know, really worthwhile just waiting for it, and also, you know, sticking it under something heavy. I mean, what you could do is maybe get your cardboard ready with the paper, and then while you're waiting you could maybe start with wrapping your pencils first. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'll get my ruler and the bone folder, because I'm going to make it easier for me to fold the box by scoring along the lines. Just have to make sure they're all nicely lined up, because that will allow me to, you know, to fold this really nice neat edge. Okay, you know, take your time, don't rush, because then you just really get the best results. You know, sometimes I'm so impatient to get something done, and then I'm rushing a process I shouldn't have rushed, and then get really frustrated. Okay, And I'm going to do the same with this little flap. Oh, something else I just thought you could do, because I think I did that. Just maybe make a practice box just out of, you know, any kind of cardstock you've got, or even just out of a piece of paper, just to get an idea of what you're doing. Because I really found that it really helped to have done one sample box, because then the next one I made worked out a lot better, and especially if you've got maybe special paper you want to use for your box, then you're not wasting your paper. So I definitely recommend making a practice box. And it doesn't take that long, so. Go, almost done. Okay, and I usually go back to, I'm starting to fold from this way, because that was another good way, good thing about making a practice box, because I think with the other one I started with the flaps, and then I started doing the other folds, so the flaps were in my way, so it's a lot easier starting from this way and folding it. So I usually do, before I fold, I'll go over it again with a bone folder, and then I'm using my ruler to fold this up. Because even though I did the score lines, I think also in this case, because I glued paper onto my cardstock, it is a bit thicker. It was a lot easier to fold the other little box I showed you. This one was a lot easier to fold because it was thinner. So that might be something to think about. That, you know, something that is slightly thinner is easier to fold. So I'll go. And then I'm just, first I'm doing it with my thumb, and then again just first very carefully, because I don't want to damage the paper. I'm going to make this really nice fold, because you want this flat bit of cardboard to create a triangle, sort of like our little Toblerone box. So you have to encourage the paper and cardstock to go into that shape. Okay, I'll do the next fold. Okay, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing it really gently, because I just find I get the best results if I'm kind of almost like, you know, gently encouraging the cardboard to go where I want it to be. I'll fold it over. And again, I'm going to use the bone folder. What's really nice about the bone folders, because even kind of this edge is round, and the way you can go back and forth, there aren't any sort of sharp edges that can really damage the paper. Okay, now we're on to the third fold. Again, doing the same thing. Going to score one more time. And folding over. And I'm really, you know, I have to use quite a lot of strength to hold down this ruler, just to kind of like keep it in place. Okay, there we go. Getting somewhere. All right. Now you can see our triangular shape happening. And now I need to do the flap. This goes up. The other side. Okay, so now we've got our box. What I usually do next is just see if everything goes into place really nicely. This side works out really well. On this side, it looks as if my flap is kind of not really wanting to stick into that corner, but that is absolutely no problem. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to cut a tiny little bit off at the top, just, you know, the tiniest little bit, and that can happen really easily because you have to remember that when you're drawing a line with a pencil, you know, that line is you know, is I don't know how thick this line is, but let's say if when you're cutting your little box, and depending on where you cut along your line, you might be cutting on your line or you might be cutting just above your line. So, you know, you have to just allow for these little irregularities. And all I'm doing now, because obviously now I haven't got the pointy bit, so I'm just adjusting that slightly. On both sides. Look. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so you've got this little corner sorted. So, you know, don't get frustrated if this happens to you. See, this is happening to me here, and, you know, this is quite, you know, just fiddle around a little bit, you know, see if you need to cut off a little bit and refold it, and you should be fine. So, next thing we need to do, there's only one place where we're going to glue this box. Just give it a quick look. This is, you know, this is how we're going to open and close the little box. So we've got kind of the flap at the top. We're going to leave this, but the other flap that is joining onto the rest of the folds, this is the little bit we need to glue onto, oh, you can see it kind of onto there. And this is where I find that double-sided sticky tape works really well. So just wrap some. And I just attach it to the flap, and then I'm going to turn it round, grab my scissors so that I can cut along. I can just cut it to size. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, again on this little flap. Okay, once I've got the glue or sticky double-sided tape on there, I'll just take off the backing paper on both sides. Obviously if you're using a different kind of glue you don't have to do that. This can be a bit fiddly. And then you just bend the flap in both sides, and then you kind of line it up and stick it on. See, and this is what, if you were using different kind of glue, you kind of would have to hold on to it until the glue is dried, whereas with the sticky tape I don't have to do that. And I'm doing the same thing here. Okay, there we are. And here's our little box. There you go. All I need now is to find a ribbon, and then I would just have to decide what colour to go for. This. And now of course I can't make up my mind. Oh, that looks quite nice. I quite like this one. Okay, so let's go for this one. And so what I would like to do is be able to kind of like wrap it round a few times and then be able to tie a knot. Maybe just give it some extra, and then I can get my pencils and put them in the little box. There we go, 3 pencils fitting in there. And then close the flap. I've got all my pencils in here, and then I'm just wrapping it around a few times, and then you tie a knot, and there we go. I've got my pencils in their little box.